In this video, I'm walking you through how to do supine groin stretch, which is one of the most powerful hip flexor releases that I know. It really does suit most bodies, but there are some people that it doesn't suit. So as ever, please use your judgment on this. And if your body doesn't feel like it's responding well to this exercise, if your symptoms of pain are feeling aggravated, and if you're actually finding it harder to relax into this as time goes on, it's normally a sign it's just not an exercise for your body to do. So sometimes we get ourselves into things and we feel sort of tension and resistance from our body. But if it's the right type of exercise for us, the longer that we hold it for, the more we relax into it. If that's not happening here, please back off this exercise. Doesn't matter if I ask you to do it, it's just not the one for you, so please don't. So you're going to need a setup a little bit like what I have here. It's a sort of half static back setup. I'm using a chair because I like using a chair. One of my legs is going to go up over the chair like in static back, but the other leg is going to lay long on the floor. I've got that bolster to the side because the bolster is going to gently prop up my foot so that it faces up towards the ceiling. So I'm not holding my foot in that position, but it's going to be propped up. A bolster is great. You can use the side of a table or another bit of furniture. You can actually use yoga blocks if you have heavy cork ones. I'm also using a cushion underneath my head here in order to keep my rib cage relaxed and down on the floor. So you can see here what the setup is. I've got a sort of half static back thing with one leg, and I've got the other leg stretched out on the floor in an extended position. The bolster is keeping my toes pointed up to the ceiling without me having to hold my leg there. My palms are facing up and my legs are in alignment. So toes, ankle, knee and hip on both legs are in alignment, but the hips and the knees are doing something different from side to side. So first off, palms facing up, upper body relaxes, really getting control of our breathing here. So breathing into our nose, breathing into our belly, and just allowing things to settle down. So this is an exercise where everything is switching off except for your breathing. So we are once again using that breath to massage us from the inside out. And for supine groin stretch, we're going to do 15 minutes on one leg in this video and then swap over to do 15 minutes on the other leg. I will guide you through when to change your legs over halfway through. But what I will say is that once you become a bit more accustomed to this exercise and you know what you're doing and you don't need my instructions and cues, is to explore doing this exercise if it suits you for much longer periods of time. So we're doing 15 minutes on each leg today because at some point the videos have to stop and I can't just be filming forever. But I do really want to encourage you to do this exercise for half an hour on one leg, half an hour on the other, maybe even 45 minutes on one side and 45 minutes on the other. If your hips are really tight, it might take that long for them to relax off. So in a minute, I am going to explain what this exercise is doing, but I just want to highlight that to you. And I always want you to do the same amount of time on each side. So you don't train balance through imbalance. Just because one side feels a bit tighter, don't hold that side for longer. You're much better off doing 15 minutes on both legs than doing 25 minutes on the side that you think is tighter, just because that's not how the body works. We want to train balance through balanced motion. So what we're doing here is asking, in my case, my left hip to extend. My left hip is in that open, extended position, which is the opposite of being sat in a chair. My right hip is in flexion, which is what we are asking our body to do when we're sat in a chair. Most people don't struggle with flexion, but they do struggle with extension. And this is why this exercise is so powerful, because it will release off tension through the hips that, generally speaking, have developed due to the amount of time that we've spent in chairs over the years. Like I mentioned at the beginning, for most people, this position is absolutely heavenly. People fall asleep here. People can feel their hips stretching. They can feel their shoulders opening. They can feel their rib cages relaxing. They can just feel their body melting into the floor as they do this, and it feels incredible. But for other people, it doesn't work so well. So by this point, you've been in the exercise for a few minutes, and if your body is feeling sort of uncomfortable in a normal way, you know, if you're feeling your normal lower back pain kick in or normal neck pain kick in, I do also welcome you to try this with the towels. So put a towel underneath your lower back and a towel underneath your neck. If doing it the way I'm doing in the video doesn't suit you, see if that version suits you more, and if it doesn't, just be willing to walk away. It's just not the exercise for you. So over the period of the 15 minutes that I'm doing on this left hip, as my left hip starts to relax and unwind the tension that it holds from being in the seated position, it's going to start creating change through my whole body. My femur is going to change in my hip socket, which is going to unwind my knee position. It's going to change my pelvic position, my lower back position, my rib cage position, my shoulder position, and my head position as well. So tight hips can cause postural problems all over the body. They can cause pain all over the body. And the reason that I'm asking you to do this supine groin stretch so many times throughout the course is because I truly believe it is that impactful for you. This is an exercise that truly can change everything about how your body feels, and therefore I want you doing it a lot. So as ever with these unilateral exercises, this time I've started with my left leg extended out in front of me. But next time, swap your legs over. So you're starting the other way around and then swapping halfway. So you will just find one way possibly suits you more. For me, even though my right hip is tighter, my left hip needs to change first. So even though I feel more restricted through my right hip, I've learned that if I start with my right leg extended and my left knee bent, it doesn't change my body in the same way that it does when I start with my left hand side. So you might notice things like that. So you've been in this now for nearly 5 minutes, and we've got 10 minutes longer if you're doing this for 15 minutes on each leg. And I'm going to keep myself quiet now for a little while, and I'll come back on and tell you when it is that you need to swap your legs over, and we'll switch to the other side. So make sure you're breathing and relaxing, and enjoy. We've got about a minute left on this extended left leg position before we swap sides. And what I wanted you to tune into now was a sense of how your lower back and rib cage feel in comparison to when we started. So hopefully, as that left hip has relaxed and let go into extension, you've noticed that without you having to pull your lower back downwards towards the floor, that your lower back is automatically releasing and relaxing to the floor. So as our hips become looser, our lower back is able to relax more. And I just want you to get a sense of that before we swap sides. Any other time you do this exercise, just keep an eye on that as well. So you're not consciously trying to change your lower back, but you will hopefully notice that it relaxes down to the floor much more quickly the more often you repeat this. And remember, if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable and a bit creaky this time, you can always use towels the next time. So in 5 seconds, we are changing legs, and getting up out of this is one of the hardest things for me because I really love this exercise. But I'm basically getting everything set up in exactly the same way on the other side. So I'm moving that chair over so it's going to support my left leg this time, and I'm moving the bolster to the right hand side so it's keeping my right foot propped up. You're making sure that both of your legs are in alignment with the hip. So the left foot, the left knee, the left ankle, and the left hip are all in alignment with one another. Same with that right foot and the right knee and the right hip. Make sure the bolster's not out too far. Make sure your chair's not taking you over to the left-hand side. And I'm getting myself set up with that cushion again. The cushion is also something that you might want to lose over time, but certainly in the beginning, for most people, I would say to have the cushion to keep the bottom of the rib cage grounded on the floor. It's going to help lengthen that hip flexor a little bit more. But if this exercise doesn't feel right for you this first time that you're doing it, like I said on the other side, it may be worth experimenting with having the towels underneath your lower back and underneath your neck, or perhaps by removing the cushion, it feels better for you. So whilst there are some sort of rules, the main rule is doing things that feel good for you and not fighting through pain. So if that means not doing the cue that I ask you to do, then that's absolutely fine. So I've got myself set up here exactly the same way on the right hand side. Palms are facing up, arms are at 45 degrees, not at 90 degrees. So the higher up your hands are, if they're level with your shoulders, you'll probably notice that your shoulders creep up round your ears. I don't mind if your shoulders are rounded up off the floor, but I don't want them up round your ears because they won't change so readily. My right foot is being propped up so it faces towards the ceiling. I'm not holding any tension through my left leg, my right leg, my hands, my arms, my neck, my jaw, or anything. I'm simply breathing nice and deeply in and out of my nose and into my diaphragm, and I'm getting a sense of how my lower back and my rib cage feel here as they interact with the floor. So can I feel that I have a bit of an arch in my lower back? And if you do, that's a sign that your hip can't extend. So because the hip is tight and it can't extend, what's happening is you're hyperextending your lumbar spine, your lower back. It's one of the most common and easy to understand reasons as to why people have lower back pain is because their hips can't extend. So by teaching our hips to extend, for many people, they can wipe away decades of lower back issues. So yeah, when you first get into this, you might notice that your pelvis is kind of rolling forwards and your lower back is arched. But as time goes on and as the right leg and the right hip start to let go, you're going to notice that pelvis gently drop down towards the floor and the lower back and the rib cage melt into the floor. Again, you are not using your abdominals to pull that lower back and the rib cage down. So at this point in the routine, I decided that I didn't need my cushion anymore. I could feel at this point that I was having a lot of releasing going on around my rib cage, around my lower back, and actually I felt that the cushion was prohibiting my body from freeing itself up in the way that it wanted to. So I got rid of the cushion so I could get a little bit more opening across the shoulders and the arms. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, make sure that you are just exploring what's right for you. So what's right for you might be not doing this exercise at all. What's right for you might be using the towels underneath your lower back and your neck. It might be not having a cushion and doing it like me here now, or it might be using a cushion without the towels. There are lots of different combinations to this exercise, so you just need to do what works best for you. So if you're doing 15 minutes on either leg, we are about 5 minutes in on this side. But like I said earlier, please, I implore you to do this exercise if you have time for longer stretches on both sides, because if you're really tight through your hips, it can take half an hour through each leg for the hips to start unwinding and for changes really to start happening. So make this your best friend when you're watching TV in the evenings and things like that, and just explore how longer and longer periods of time can really start impacting your body. And a final word here before I leave you alone for the next 10 minutes and remind you of when your time is up is, if you are not feeling anything in this exercise, please do not underestimate the power of it. So for many of you, you are going to feel stuff whilst you're in this. You are going to feel your hip stretching. You are going to feel your rib cage releasing. You are going to feel your shoulders reposition. You may notice that your jaw is chattering as it kind of relaxes and changes position too. So for some of you, you will be feeling tangible effects whilst you're in the position. For others, you won't feel anything at all. You won't feel your hips stretching. You won't feel your shoulders releasing. And you may think, there is no point to me doing this exercise. I'm just laying around. Nothing is happening. If you're not feeling anything in this exercise, in all likelihood, you need this more than the people that are feeling stuff in this exercise. So if you're not feeling anything in this exercise, it's most likely that you are so tight in your hips that they haven't started releasing yet. So unless you are experiencing pain, if your normal lower back tension or your normal knee tension or your normal neck tension is getting worse, I don't want you doing this exercise. If you're here not feeling anything at all, I want you absolutely to carry on doing this exercise more frequently and for longer periods of time, because actually it's more likely a sign that your hips are so tight that you're not unwinding from the exercise yet. So one of the biggest mistakes with supine groin stretch is people thinking that they don't need it because they don't feel anything, but the reality is that they're not feeling anything because they are so dysfunctional in hip extension. So please don't make that mistake. Unless you're in pain, there is always benefit to this exercise. Right, I'm going to leave you alone now for the final 10 minutes, and I'll come and give you a bit of a warning when you've got about a minute left to go. We're drawing into our final minute here of supine groin stretch with my right leg extended. Once again, tune into that lower back and that rib cage and shoulder position. Are they settling down to the floor? Can you feel things more relaxed and more melted now that you've spent this time with the hip in extension for so long? Hopefully that is the case. If you feel like this exercise hasn't suited you, remember your options the next time. So I wouldn't immediately dismiss it, but I would try it with perhaps more pillows or less pillows, or I might try it with the towels underneath my lower back and my neck. But if that doesn't work, it doesn't work. So please feel free to just let go of the exercise and work on the things that work for you instead. Just coming up into our final 10 seconds here. You might have fallen asleep at this point in the video, and if you have, that's a very good sign that the exercise suits you a lot. 3, 2, and 1. And that is supine groin stretch.